The United States has very limited options for a military strike, with its main purpose to send a message and not cripple the Bashar al-Assad regime. This is what Professor Gerald Steinberg, an expert on U.S. strategic affairs, told IBA's R.A. O'Sullivan.
They might have a very limited strike against a few symbolic or even substantive chemical weapons targets in the Damascus area, sending a message, not really crippling the Assad regime, not determining the outcome of the war or handing a victory to the jihadists, but also sending a message that the United States is going to strike back if there's continued use of chemical weapons. There may be a more extensive wave of air attacks. I doubt very much we'll see anything on the ground, however.
Well, can you tell me a little bit more about what's in the U.S. arsenal? What do they have available?
First of all, they've got warships nearby. They can bombard the territory. We're not talking about something that's deep into we're not talking about Afghanistan or Iraq. They can go to the very edge of Syria and launch some artillery, some other naval weapons, very precise weapons against targets. They could. There's been some talk about cruise missiles, which I'm somewhat skeptical about, because cruise missiles are used for much longer range activities. There could be some direct manned aircraft sorties against specific targets. It really depends on a combination of the message that the Obama administration wants to send, how much they're willing to damage the Assad regime's capability, the placement of civilians. All those things have to be taken into account in deciding what type of.
So, Professor, we talked about the American options. What about the Syrian options for retaliation?
There's always a risk whenever you undertake any kind of military activity, and the Syrians do have rockets, missiles, also anti-ship attack capabilities, as we saw was used by Hezbollah against Israel in the Lebanon War in 2006. Those are options, but at the same time, Israel has reportedly undertaken a number of very precise pinpoint attacks against convoys, weapons convoys in the Damascus and Syria, Latakia area. There's been no Syrian retaliation. Israel reportedly attacked and destroyed a nuclear installation in 2007 near Damascus. No Syrian response. I think if there was to be a folly, it would be that the Assad regime would somehow take military action against some sort of response in terms of the use of chemical weapons.
The Russians have put their fleet on alert, and the Syrians and Hezbollah have mounted their forces around Palestinian refugee camps in Syria. Are we in a recipe for March of the Follies?
Well, I don't think we're going to see a confrontation, certainly not a military confrontation between the United States and Russia. I was going to say the Soviet Union, but that's not the case here. There are some differences in interests. There's a war of words, but there's not really a possibility of a direct clash here. We're not going to see scenarios like we had in 1973 during the war, or even some confrontations afterwards. The Russians are going to continue to support the Assad regime. That is the way they define their national interest, directly in confrontation with the United States. The Russians have put vetoes on any kind of UN resolution or action, the Russians and Chinese together. There are some meetings scheduled for this week. It's always meetings with the Obama administration to try to reach some sort of common agreement with the Russians. I don't think that's a major factor here.
Some Israeli experts are saying Iran is watching how America reacts to crossing of the red lines. What do you think about that?
The U.S., particularly Obama, knows that the Iranians are watching, and the Iranians know that the Americans are watching what happens in the terms of it's a mirror within a mirror within a mirror. It's a very difficult situation, but Obama really has to decide. It's a critical time. Is he going to act and send that signal not only to Damascus but also to Tehran, or is he going to sit on his hands, talk, and do the hand-wringing? The American people are tired of Afghanistan, Iraq. They do not want to have another military confrontation. This is where leadership becomes a critical issue. And really will make, I think, a very important difference for the rest of the Obama administration and beyond. Is this a retrenchment of American isolationism? The inability of an American leader to say, we've got to do this for our own national interests, or will Obama say, as Bush said before him after 9/11, as going back to Roosevelt in World War II, this is about our national interests, our national character. We have to take action to prevent the spread of chemical weapons and to make sure that anybody who uses such terrible weapons of mass destruction understands that there's a cost to be paid. That's what leadership is all about, and Obama right now has not shown that leadership.